We started with 13 people. I had 2% in the polls. We finished Iowa with 20%. We want to be stronger in New Hampshire, and we want to be even stronger than that in South Carolina. I mean, keep in mind, I know the political class wants to say that this race is over, and I know the political class is saying everybody needs to get behind Trump. This is not a coronation.
Nikki Haley with a message for voters after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis drops out of the Republican presidential race just days before the New Hampshire primary, making that a two-person contest. Brit Hume, Fox News senior political analyst, is here, and it's great to have you. Have you ever covered a New Hampshire primary when there were only two candidates?
Not that I can recall.
Right.
I mean, sometimes there are effectively only two.
Right.
But usually there's still a slew of them that are still in the race. You know, people said Iowa didn't really amount to much, but it did what it usually does, which is to winnow the field, and now it's really been winnowed.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Here we go. CNN says, as of today, Trump's at 50, Haley's at 39, DeSantis at 6. I want to ask you about that in a minute here. Another one from that same poll, DeSantis voters second choice, 62% will go for Trump and Haley 30. So 2-to-1 split there. We'll see how it works out tomorrow night. You've been thinking about DeSantis for the last 18 hours, I'd imagine. What do you think happened in his campaign when he had such a burst of steam and money a year ago?
There's a great deal being said about how he ran a bad campaign, and he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he had a bad launch and so on. I don't think any of that had much to do with what happened to him. I think what happened to him was that his campaign was based on a flawed premise, a premise that looked good in the polls a year ago, which was that Republican voters, angry with Trump about a whole host of things, from the turbulence of his presidency to his behavior after he lost the election in 2020, to the losses the party suffered while he was president and leading the party, that all of that had turned them to where they were looking for somebody else, maybe somebody with a similar issue profile, but with no baggage, without the baggage. DeSantis thought he could be that person, and at the time he decided to get in the race, it was a perfectly reasonable scenario. The problem was the party was not ready to turn away from Donald Trump. And once Donald Trump got indicted by Alvin Bragg on that obviously hopelessly flawed indictment, the loyalty they felt to Trump came to the surface, and I don't think DeSantis ever had a chance, and I'm not sure anybody did.
And the polls show that, like, on that date of that first indictment, it was just never, it's a slow growth, but growth President Trump had.
And you know, Dana, that indictment was obviously flawed and almost laughable, since it was a victimless crime, the alleged fraud. Everybody who, loaned Trump money got paid, but I think the later indictments were arguably more credible. But I think that the Bragg indictment stained the whole project. And the rest of the charges ended up losing credibility because of what he did, and also because of the way he'd been pursued while president by investigators, by the Justice Department, and the rest of it.
It's interesting you point that out. You look at some of the polling in these battleground states, not all of them, but there's a pattern, Britt, going back 10 months. And it's Biden edge, Biden edge, Biden edge. Then in October in some of these states, it just flipped. And we went back last week. We were like, what happened in October? And that wasn't the Alvin Bragg case. That was the civil fraud trial that Letitia James brought against Trump.
Right.
For all the real estate transactions going back throughout his career.
Yeah, and I don't really think that case amounts to much either. And I think people can see that. The truth is that when you get down to it, the Republican Party is still enthralled to Donald Trump. The distinct majority of its voters are, and it didn't take much to wake that sentiment up again. Yeah. At any other time, any other candidate, DeSantis would have done fine. His campaign, in my view, was just fine. All this stuff about, well, he wasn't cuddly and all that, I don't think that really had much.
And DeSantis had said, people have told him that if Trump wasn't in the race, I'd be their guy. So he's looking ahead,
right.
Even to
I think that's probably true.
I want to ask you about what the White House might be thinking. One of the things you hear over and over again is Biden's too old. And I admire the deputy campaign manager, Quentin Fulks. He's doing his best to try to explain why this isn't a problem. Let's listen to him. This call for number 3.
When it comes to the president's age, we have a simple formula for that, and that's results. Age equals wisdom equals results and experience. And President Biden, because of his age, has come to the table and brought people together from both sides of the aisle to deliver results for the American people.
Is that going to cut it, Britt?
Well, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think the age issue is a very serious problem for the president. And the fact is, people can see his fragility, his feebleness, just even by the way he walks. And I don't think there's any getting around. I mean, Trump is nearly as old, But Trump seems vigorous and robust and strong. Maybe
he has
strong
energy to spare.
Like Brit.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't go that far.
Can I ask you this quickly here? Nikki Haley told us an hour ago she's not getting out, no matter the results tomorrow night.
That's what DeSantis said a week ago.
I agree with you on that.
And
in fairness, you're right about that. Do you get a sense that by Wednesday morning we are diving into a general election campaign?
Well, it certainly could happen depending on the margin here. Look, this is, don't forget, New Hampshire is a state almost designed for a candidate like Nikki Haley. Because it used to be, New Hampshire was once really reliably red and through and through Republican. And that's not true anymore. The southern tier of the state is populated heavily by people who work in Boston. It's a different political profile of the state. It's a good state for a moderate. The independent vote is huge here. I think a majority, the largest number of voters are independents. So this is a state where someone like Nikki Haley should really have a chance, and so she might do something here that would give us a semblance of a race for a while at least.
That's why we're here, to see what happens.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.